part who knows on this Jeep, but me and Butter are back out here in the garage. Let's give a little Butter tour. Hello. She funny. We're out here and we are doing there's a radiator leak somewhere up at the radiator on the driver's side. I'll take care of that today. I gotta figure out where it's leaking from. I may convert it to an open cooling system. I've got all the parts to do that. Just gotta see if this one, where the crack is coming from, where the leak's coming from, if it's worth closing it up, and then if it overheats or not. But I'm gonna work on welding first. I got this floor pan off Amazon. I just bought the cheapest one on Amazon. I think it was 70 bucks. I don't know, and who knows when you're watching this video, but I was very shocked at, if you want, comment below and I'll put the link down there. This is the front driver's side floor pan. I mean, it's huge, you can see. This is gonna do way more than my rusted out area. It's real wide and the steel is actually pretty darn thick. I'll measure it with my gauge when I go to weld it and tell you guys, but I'm just shocked. I'm very happily surprised at what they sent me. I thought it was gonna be the totally wrong size, wrong shape, wrong everything, but it looks good to me. And I don't care, there's a piece of dog hair in my mouth. I don't care so much if it's not perfectly shaped. I'm gonna have to cut it, bend it, weld it anyways, but that's what we'll work on first. So the beer choices for the day. I'm not like a beer guy. You guys have probably seen most of what I drink, but it is just what showed up in my fridge. Some sort of lemon beer, something or other. And then pull the beer panties down here a bit. A Doo-Doo Ranger, 1985 Mango IPA. So we'll see what they do. See if they get the job done. Butter getting in there, chewing everything up. One is really going to be taking out this seat and getting the carpet pulled back. Okay, camera cut out, don't know when. This seat has the gangster lean, so basically it's tipped like this instead of being flat. And I've made a video about this before. You're just going to take the seat out, both front ones, and swap the butt cushions. It's 4 13mm bolts on the underside, and then you can just swap them. That way the gangster lean kind of tips you into the car. And it puts the more heavily worn one, the driver's side, on the passenger side, which you as the driver, the more frequently occupied spot, doesn't have to deal with anymore. Your passenger has that lean, but also you see that slight rip right there? When we swap this to the passenger, now that rip is no longer gonna be in the high traffic area on the getting in and out of the door. It'll be on the inside by the seat belt. So it's just less likely to get more wear and tear. And honestly, whenever I get a Jeep, I like to swap these seats no matter what, because over time they do wear and end up sagging. But if you swap them before they've got a big lean in them, it's gonna be years before you ever wear them out or get that lean. So, and if you do have a real bad lean, you can weld it. I'll show you the crack, but it's probably not worth it in my opinion. So I'm gonna bust these seats out, 4 13mm bolts, hold the whole base down, and we'll take the entire seat out. Dog is happy as a clam, but I am not. I never pulled this back seat, unfolded it when I was buying the Jeep, and I took the top out and someone just cut a big hole with a knife. Not sure why they did that. They drew a line in Sharpie on both the butt and the backrest for the back seat. You can see the Sharpie line, and then they just chopped it with what looks like a knife. I have no idea why anyone would do it. That's a huge pain for me because this pattern is not common. I'm gonna have to get this reupholstered now, and they may not even be able to match this. So, and the foam's all torn up. Man, I've never seen any damage to any back seats. It's all front seats, so I didn't even think to look, but they ruined that, so. Fun. Good rust when it leaves pieces of the seat bracket stuck to the carpet. So one of the studs ended up pulling out. I was actually able to get all of these out, which was pretty impressive in my opinion. Here is what the bolt ended up looking like after the fact. I did have to start with 9/16, it had built up so much scale, it was all puffed and swollen, and I ended up having to go down to 12 millimeter to actually get it off, but it was all right. The other one just pulled the stud out, which is, I thought I was breaking all of these off. I was planning to break them off and just re-weld in new studs, but did not have to. So now I'll just take out the trim pieces and peel the carpet back. You know, this Jeep, it came with more things than any other Jeep I bought. It came with a bunch of rags, bunch of brake clean, tons of spare change. Oh, I consider that already a win in my book. Two front drive shafts. There's none on the car, so one of them hopefully will fit for the car, but most likely none of them work for the car. Bunch of cigarette butts, a Ferrero Rocher wrapper. Oh, hose clamps. I need these. This is awesome. Love it. Oh my God. You guys have gotta like, comment, and subscribe. I need a new camera. It just keeps shutting off. The screen is flickering now. I don't want to buy new batteries for an old camera that doesn't work. Come on, I got them monetized. Y'all are killing me. Oh, this is junk. Oh my gosh. What the hell? Wow, there's still a lot of factory insulation in here, considering someone's probably been in here before. Wrestle with it. Wrestle. Ooh. Man. Ah, gross. I'm sure the camera shows this by now. Ooh, e-brake. Ah, there we go. There we go. Big ol' wide ass. We gotta go out the door, so I'm gonna have to move y'all. Alright. I usually just store them as one big lump, so I know how they go back in. I will shampoo the carpet separately than the insulation. Don't really need to shampoo the insulation. That's just asking for it to fall apart. Okay. Let's see where all that water's coming from. Let me show you guys the finished product. The extent. You know, that vanilla porter wasn't cutting it. I had to switch back to doing the vodka and the Bud Lights. I make my own IPAs. This side looks pretty good, you know, with the, I mean, this is all solid. There's no rot here, but it is very wet. I gotta figure out what the heck that's about. Driver's side is a completely different story, which we saw this from the underside. It wasn't disclosed before I purchased it, but I did see it. But I wasn't that concerned, and I got that nice floor pan. So that'll take care of that. Back here, I think someone blew the drive shaft out because it's pushed up about 4 or 5 inches in this area. It's not just a rust hole. This got ripped apart, I think, by when the drive shaft broke at some point, because it's right around where the yoke ends for the transmission, out of the transfer case. And then it's like the muffler's smashed up on this side, and then this area is all smashed up. So I think it cut it, and that's what ended up creating some rust. So my floor pan is huge, way more than I need up here. I'll just use the extra pieces to weld this up. and no repair necessary over here. As I'm sitting here tearing this thing apart, just wanted to pause for a second and remind you guys that it has to get worse before it gets better. Looking wise, the Jeep. I do like, you know, restorations on these little Jeeps and Blazers. I don't do mudding or off-roading. I don't do a whole lot of crawler projects. I have one dedicated XJ that I use just for wheeling. And I've made some videos on it, and I bought it because it was all messed up and dented on the body anyways, so I didn't feel bad about tearing it up. But I don't do like off-road projects a ton where I bang these things up. I try to bring them back to stock as much as possible, and as you're going through and you're ripping off trim panels and cutting out carpet and ripping stuff up, just remember it's gotta get worse before it gets better. And it always, right now this thing looks much worse than when I got it. But it's because you got to tear down to these areas to cut it all out, fix it the right way, and then put it back together. Just make sure when you're tearing stuff out, you're not ripping it up or making big cuts in visible areas. You can cut in areas that are underneath plastic panels and seats and seat belts and trim pieces, because you'll never see it and it's not going to be a problem when you put it back together. But just know, it always looks worse before it looks better. And I figured I'd just let you guys know, because every time I'm doing this, it crosses my mind. I'm like, holy cow, what did I get myself into? This thing looks 10 times worse. There's extension cords, there's pieces laying everywhere, stuff's on the roof, different color body panels, missing a fender. It looks worse before it gets better. So I've got stuff tied out of the way and I cut some stuff out of my way. Now I'm just gonna lay in my my replacement floor panel, and we'll get to tracing, cutting, and welding. Unfortunately, I gotta backpedal everything I said about the whole, this is awesome, this panel, the cheapest one on Amazon I ordered. It doesn't fit at all, as you can tell. I don't know what Jeep Cherokee 8401 they were talking about. Driver's side too. This thing don't fit at all. There are some ridges over here that line up with the factory ridges in the floor pan, but the transmission tunnel doesn't fit at all. The bends are in the right place too. It's got a lump right here, but it does not fit at all, unless it's, yeah, no. So at least they gave me more than I need, not less than I need. So it should be easy to, you know, cut out some pieces. And there was something about galvanized on the description in Amazon, so I'll kick a fan on here when I'm actually welding, but now I gotta bend this thing up and do more work than I wanted to do. By hammering it with the mini sledge. I did heat it up with the torch, and I had some welding gloves on. And I'm just hammering it down, figuring out the curves. Sheet metal screws are your friend when you're doing this. So once you get a corner or an area that fits well, put a couple of sheet metal screws or self-tapping screws in there to hold it down while you heat up and beat around the rest. Got a sheet metal screw back there and about to go inverted. Showing white, there's one right there. Also another thing, if you guys are younger, or it doesn't matter, if you don't have a welder or you don't want to do all the work, it doesn't matter. Just throw this stuff over your rust hole, put in the sheet metal screws, put your carpet back down, and call it a day. It's not a big deal. That'll at least get a lot of the water getting over your carpet from the snow and in the winter. It's not going to stop anything from weld or rusting, but it really doesn't matter. You don't have to do everything the absolute correct way the first time around. It's all a learning experience, and it's your Jeep. Or it's your car. If you don't want to fix it the right way, go ahead and do this. Throw in the sheet metal screws and put your carpet down. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anybody. It won't stop your rusting problem. But if that's how you want to do it, it doesn't matter. Just do whatever works for you. Time to start making some relief cuts. You're going to have to do this when you're working with metal that's not a direct, bolt-in replacement. A lot of sheet metal screws. It always helps to go and check underneath. And look for the light. Check underneath, make sure your panel fits well. Whoa, oh my God. I gotta cut a hole for my stud. Genius, right? Yeah, so I circled it out and I'm gonna cut it out. You either wanna drill this out, but I've already bolted my panel down with the sheet metal screws. So I'm gonna cut it out with the angle grinder, just make a little relief cut so that can sit more flat. And then we'll just keep heating up the corners and then pounding them in, making relief cuts where we need them, pounding it in until we get it dead perfect, as in a nice fit. And then I will trace it out to what I want to cut, because I don't need this entire panel. So I'll trace what I want to cut out up top, then I'll cut that out, then I'll set it in, trace out on the brown, the original stuff, and cut on that. But I'll show you what I do. Behind the back side, and I got a little Sharpie. It's silver, same color as my metal, so not smart, but draw a line, because I know where the rusted metal is at and I know what I need to cut out just based on looking at it. It doesn't have to be perfect yet. Help if you make some more relief cuts for bending it. Remember, we're gonna weld all this up Whew, spicy. We're gonna weld all this up anyways. Are we still recording? Checks out. So it doesn't really matter all these relief cuts that we make. It just makes the panel fit better. Look at that. Definitely still needs one more cut, kind of right in there, because it's laying way off. That'll do it. We can push it in. Once we get it welded in, we can put some screws or whatever else, but that's good by me. Still gotta get that off, and I gotta get this wrinkle out back there, but I'll do it when I take the whole panel out, since it's a pretty chunky wrinkle. But other than that, I mean, to be honest, if that's good enough for you, throw a couple sheet metal screws in there and don't worry about it. Don't worry what them nerds on the internet say. They don't love you anyways. They never gonna. If you like it and it's your car, put the sheet metal screws in and roll like that. If you want to go to, you know, Harbor Freight, buy a welder for 90 bucks, you can weld this crap in too and then do it the right way. But whatever works, man. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. The only other thing you want to pay attention to before you go chopping this stuff out is whenever you're cutting on actual existing metal, just be aware of what's behind where you're gonna cut. These lines here, I'm gonna actually drop down around this and this bolt because there's no rust there, and that's my 4-wheel drive bolt in. Also, on these Cherokees, if you follow the unibody, there's a fuel lines directly to the passenger side of the unibody line. So up in here, there's fuel lines that are very close. You do not want to dig in deep into any of that. And then all the way back here, they run along the entire thing. So be very careful back in this area too. You've got fuel lines. If you chop through them with one of these angle grinders, alright, blow yourself up, might die. Probably not, but you might start a fire if you've got fuel in those lines. If you don't, you're gonna have to repair a fuel line, which sucks. And if you're just gonna do like lap welds, then you could, you know, just be sure to cut this stuff off. Or maybe if you really want to skimp it out, you could try to cut as much out and then shoot the rest with some rust inhibitor spray and then weld on top. I'm gonna do a butt weld, which I wouldn't recommend if it's your first time. The metal butts directly up to itself and it's a lot harder to do. It's a lot easier to burn through. But if you're gonna do that, you just need to be a lot more careful and precise with the metal. If you're gonna do that, I would also recommend, especially if it's one of your first times doing a butt weld, start in just one corner. Cut out maybe some of this, put in your screws, weld it up, pull your screws out, weld up those holes, and then cut out the rest of the metal as you're welding in the the butt welds. That way you can hammer and weld and shape as you go, and you don't have to be dead perfect with it. Okay, we have most everything chopped out. We still have to, so you can see the unibody rail is clean down here, but it's not quite clean up here and here. I still need to get an air hammer or just a hammer and a chisel myself, knock all that away. The line that I traced around when my panel was on there, I've ground that all off with the angle grinder and the flap disc, and that's basically ready for me to set my panel. As soon as I clear all this off, set my panel in and start welding. I almost forgot to mention, you got to put down some weld through primer on any of these. Just be safe, do it on any of these areas on the bottom of your pan and the actual body of the car, because these are butt welds, but in case they're not dead perfect, in case there's a little bit of overlapped, I'd like some sort of paint or rust preventative to be covered on the inside of these weld areas. And we're gonna seam seal them too, but just in case, doesn't hurt, throw down some weld through primer. So while I let that dry, I'm gonna take a break, sit outside, enjoy the warm weather. We're gonna get ready to weld. This is galvanized, I think, so I've got an exhaust fan. A little pro tip, not even a pro tip, but just I've been doing this a bit. This steel is 18 gauge. I thought it was heavier, thicker than it really is, but the machine, the Hobart Handler 140 running off 110, 125, like normal house outlet. I'm not running 210. It says to use 1 and 30 on the deal. But when I'm doing flux core on very thin stuff, I keep the voltage as low as possible and the wire speed as high as possible. So I'm gonna do 1 and 45. And I've done exhaust stuff around this same thickness, and that's my best guess at what's gonna hit correctly. Now also, when you're doing this, you're gonna heat up the panel super quickly because it's super thin. So if you're using a flux core on something this thin, make sure you move across your panel. Don't stick in the same place for an entire bead. You're never gonna run a bead on something like this. You're just doing a bunch of spot welds until you get the whole thing completed. Just heads up, you're gonna weld and then you're gonna hammer in. I'm using a, little mini hammer and then a punch. Then you're gonna hammer the pieces in, then you're gonna weld all this up. This will get hot, hammer it in, weld it up. That'll get your stuff right in. This stuff wasn't that close. This will be a lot closer. And I've done a couple spot welds there. So we are about, just know that this is about 30% done of what you're gonna need to do. I've spot welded just about everywhere around the panel. And I still need to go back through. By the way, I'm spot welding. I mean, a lot of times I'm holding it with my hand and then spot welding it with the other hand. Burns my finger, let it go. Then I hammer in the corners, then I weld down some more spot welds. If you look at there's just a couple crappy spot welds holding all these tabs. I still need to go in and weld up all these cracks, weld up everywhere else around. I basically just have it spot welded, but right now you can kind of tell. So when you first put it in, it's going to be a lot more rattly, and once you start welding stuff in, it'll start to sound a lot more solid, and you can see all the hammer spots that I've done. But there's my stud for the seat. This one I've got to drill a hole and then put a new stud in. But that's pretty much probably all I'm gonna film. You just gotta know that it's gonna take you all night long. When you're using real light wire like 030, it's gonna constantly bird nest up and go in there, especially when you've got the wire speed super high. I was up at 5, I had to back it down to 4 or 40. I was at 45, I had to back it down to 4 or 38 because it kept birds nesting and breaking the wire. When you try to shoot so much wire through and your voltage is low, it just doesn't hit as hot, and it tends to want to bird's nest up and, you know, snap your wire, and then you got to refeed it through. So I'll weld the rest of this most likely off camera, do seam sealer. It's just gonna take a while, and filming is kind of a pain in the butt. I got a little hole back there to patch up, and then that should take care of pretty much all of the rust on this Jeep. The rockers are solid. It's really just this one floor pan.